Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Cherry and Timber Talk. And if you saw the show yesterday, today we'll be continuing the conversation. This will be part two of India's greatest test match victories, chasing in the fourth innings. I'm joined by Devendra and Mahesh. Hey, guys.
Hi,
Hi.
good evening.
And we will be shortly joined by Yogesh as well, who is running late. But yeah, we don't blame him. It's London time. So you know we give him that leeway right now. So all right, let's begin while Yogesh joins in. I think we got to talk about 1971, Devendra, 50 years anniversary this year. So obviously that's a big victory. We saw in Nishad's book as well the way he described that victory and the twin wins right after that, which followed after that as well. So yeah, we should start with that, and I think maybe we could also slip in 1969 Dunedin as well.
Yeah, so 24th August, in fact, so day after tomorrow, it's the golden jubilee of that historic win at the Oval. Third test of the series, the first two tests were drawn, and the England players and the English media had not really taken serious note of our victory in the West Indies a few months previously. England were fresh after winning the Ashes in Australia under Ray Illingworth, so they had their full strength side against us. The first two test matches were drawn. Both teams could have won at Lord's in the first test. England probably had the edge in the second test. India needed 420 to win, and India was 65 for 3, if memory serves me right, at close on the fourth day, and the entire fifth day's play was washed
Washed
out.
out.
Then we came to the Oval where England took a lead of 71 on the first innings, and on the fourth day, the so-called pundits were saying that how much will England need to score to declare in the second innings and set India a target. But someone called Bhagwat Chandrasekhar had other ideas, and he took 6 wickets for 38, and England were bowled out for 101, and suddenly the match was wide open. India needed 173 to create history. We had played our first test on English soil 39 years previously. Never had we come even close to winning a test
Winning.
match on English soil, and this was an opportunity to not only win a test but also win the series. Apart from Chandrasekhar, of course, Venkat Raghavan took 2 wickets, the vice captain, and Eknath Solkar, of course, we all remember that catch that he held off Alan Knott, and Alan Knott had been a thorn in our flesh during that series. He would
He scored a
offer
lot
us.
of runs also in that match, right?
Yeah, he was actually he did very well against the great spinners from India. He was a
Yeah.
great player of spin. And then 101 to win. We were 76 for 2 at close on the fourth day. Ajit Wadekar and Dilip Sardesai going well. And then there was a shock on the fifth morning. Ajit Wadekar was run out. But the story goes that just as he was walking back, he just looked at Dilip Sardesai, his Mumbai teammate, and just said, "Dilip, sodu nakos." Sodu nakos means don't
Don't leave it.
let him go.
Yeah.
And he returned to the dressing room, took his leg guards off, and apparently went off to sleep. Such was his confidence in the Indian middle order. And of course, Dilip Sardesai stayed in, and then Vishwanath and Farooq Engineer had a partnership that took us close to the target, and then Abid Ali finished it off with a boundary, and
That's
history
right.
was
I mean,
created.
I'm glad you also brought out, B.S. Chandrasekhar's name as well, Devendra. So for all the young viewers watching here, I mean, he was such an inspiration, right? He was differently abled. He had an issue with his wrist. He had wrist polio, I believe, and
his his right hand was affected by polio, so
that's right.
he couldn't raise. If he tried to raise it, the hand would fall down, like it would. He was not able to control it. But that was
Correct.
a classic example of how you can turn a disability, if I may use that word,
Yes,
into an asset, and he turned it
Opportunity.
absolutely,
into something potent. And 242 wickets in Test cricket. He was our ultimate match winner of the 60s and 70s. I
absolutely,
mean, an absolute
absolutely.
legend.
Agreed. I mean, like they say that the only disability is in the mind. He was an
Exactly.
absolute champion. And, before, I mean, obviously our generation saw the great Anil Kumble. I think before that, we could safely say that he was the previous version of, the great Anil Kumble. The pace at which he bowled and, the line and length that he bowled was very similar. And, it was, I mean, a delight to watch for sure.
Yeah, no
And,
doubt.
Mahesh, I mean, we had a conversation off air before this. I really want you to bring that point out. What was the common factor between these two victories?
I think let him speak about the Dunedin 1968 match as well. Then we will touch upon what we were discussing. I
Sure.
think Devendra, you
Yeah,
should
go
talk
ahead.
about the 1968
Yeah,
victory
so
itself.
I think we need to. There is this group of Patodi fans who are often very peeved about the fact that why do you keep talking about 71, 71? We did win a series overseas in 67, 68 in New Zealand. So yeah, I think the first test of that four-test series in New Zealand, which was played at Dunedin, it is significant because it was our first test win overseas, and
Yes.
it was a very eventful game of cricket. New Zealand began well with Graham Dowling, their skipper, scoring a century. But the spinners were in great form. Erapalli Prasanna, the cunning old fox, was on a roll, and we found ourselves needing 200 to win the Test match. And of course, in 35 years of Test cricket till then, we had never ever won a Test match on foreign soil. So history was against us, but we got there for the loss of 5 wickets with a left-handed opening batsman from Mumbai who batted at number three and went on to captain India to history in 1971, being the best performer for us with the bat in that game.
Wonderful. Yes, Mahesh, go ahead.
So we all talk about Ajit Wadekar as a captain. He led India to brilliant victories in the West Indies and England, no doubt about that. He was very inspirational. But what we overlook at times, or at most times, is that he was a fabulous batsman. He used to walk in at number three, like what Devendra said, and he used to score heaps of runs. I mean, he was such a good captain that his batsmanship was normally overlooked. If you look at all the Indian victories, he's played a very significant role. And we should all remember, batting at number three is one of the most difficult positions in the batting lineup because in overcast conditions, in alien conditions, it's very difficult to go out and bat at number three. Here was a man, he would go out, he would score runs, do his job very well, very underrated cricketer, no, nothing flamboyant about it. I mean, you had somebody like Salim Durrani who was very flamboyant. You had somebody like Mansoor Ali Khan Pataudi, very flamboyant. But look at Ajit Wadekar. He would go out, do his work, come back, India won the match. And that is the reason why a lot of people did not know his significant contribution as a batsman.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his scores, na, the 80 and 71 in that Dunedin Test match. That speaks for itself. He also had a big score in the Delhi Test that we spoke about yesterday, the chase at Delhi,
Correct.
where we chased down 181. I think he scored 70 odd. And then at Oval in 1971, of course, as Mahesh said, we remember him as a great captain. But look at his contributions: 48 in the first innings and 45 in the second innings. We lost Sunil Gavaskar very early in our chase of 173. Hi Yogesh. So
Hey,
we got off to a poor start, but Ajit Wadekar came in 45 runs in a chase of 173. I mean that those runs were precious. So as Mahesh rightly said, Ajit Wadekar has not got his due as a batsman, and I think that is a lot to do with the Indian obsession for the three-figure mark. Ajit Wadekar has only one Test century to
yes.
his name, and that also was incidentally scored on that series in New Zealand in 67, 68. But a lot of 70s, 80s critical, crucial innings that were match-winning knocks.
Devendra,
I
that is
mean,
in
I'll,
the fourth innings, which we all know how difficult it is to score runs in the fourth innings, and that's when he
Yes,
would
very
go
much.
out and score runs, which is very very important for young people to know how great a player Ajit Wadekar was.
I'm glad you brought that point out, Devendra. I mean, I'm tired of explaining this to people, especially from our country. That 100 is not, the the only thing in life for a batsman. There are significant innings played by guys who have, maybe not reached a three-figure mark, but then in the context of the game, the series, those were like, memorable innings. For example, a Lakshman scoring 96 at Durban, I would take that any day
Oh,
over 100.
fabulous.
That was
Fabulous.
class innings, right? Absolutely class. Sachin's 98 against Pakistan, it wasn't 100, but you know what that was. That innings was at Centurion, right? So I mean, it's about time that we stop our obsession over the three-figure mark all the time. Yes, hundreds are important. They look good on paper. They look good on the honors board. Yes, but then of course, you got to appreciate the other innings as well, as we have Yogesh stepping in with his comment. Yes,
I
Yogi.
just say that, it's not just the hundreds that you score, but I think, this current Indian team has also shown there is a value in playing 100 balls and 200 balls. because all that ultimately, sort of ends up in terms of how it works for the team. And very
Absolutely.
good point. I mean, it's one of the things that I've recently been reflecting on with this Indian team at the least, right? In this Indian team, you don't have people who are scoring centuries with the same consistency as Sachin, Saurav, Rahul Dravid, or VVS Lakshman were. But this
Yes.
Indian team is producing results which are far better than the earlier ones. And some of it
Hmm.
actually has to do with how many people are actually playing together and contributing in those small 30s, 40s,
That's
leading up
right.
to match winning results. And classic Lords, right? Only a few days ago, right? The 60 by Ajinkya Rahane or 40 by Pujara, you take that out, and that win was non-starter, right?
Yes.
And I
Absolutely.
think a lot of this, I think India now has to start thinking about, we are probably not going to get another Sachin Tendulkar, maybe Virat Kohli, but that essentially would not be a bad idea if four people are going to score 50s in a match, or four people are going to pitch in with 40 pluses, and that's going to
That's
add
right.
up to a lot.
That's right. And remember,
Right?
these are difficult batting conditions as
Yes.
well. I mean, if you see off late, batting has become difficult, especially in Test cricket. We are seeing more and more result-oriented pitches as well. I mean, obviously, the Duke ball in England swings a lot more these days than it used to do in that era as well. So we've got to take everything into contention before making a judgment on players as well. So I think I completely agree there, Yogesh.
Al- I think also one factor not many people would probably be considering is the DRS, and
Absolutely.
how that is having an impact on batsmen, right? You would have seen many series in the past wherein the batsman was out, but they carried on, they went on to
Yeah.
score a century, maybe a double century or something, right? And nowadays it is so razor thin that you actually
Yes.
miss a close
Yes.
ball, and a close LBW can go against you, which in the
Yes.
past, the days that the advantage goes to the
Yes.
batsman or something. It doesn't now. It now
That's right.
doesn't.
The game has changed, Yogi. I mean, batting has changed. Coaching has
Yeah, yeah,
also changed now.
yeah,
People are coaching batsmen to kind of, play in a certain manner that they get
yeah.
away, with the DRS decision, because earlier, if you remember, the yesteryear players used to play with bat and pad close together. But now the batsmen are playing with the bat in front of the pad
Front of them.
because they know that, if it hits the pad, it's a dead, they're gone, right? So, I mean, that's the way the game has changed. And we have a lot of former bowlers also claiming that I would have taken 1,000 wickets in Test cricket if DRS had been in my era as well. So yeah, so I mean, I completely agree there as well.
I was watching one of the India England Test matches, and I believe it was 1986, if I'm not mistaken. And some decisions that India got in that test match in our favor were shocking. With the ball turning square, if the batsman is given out when he's being hit in front of leg stump, you have to then wonder. So well,
Yeah, I think, yeah,
I
that's
think
the
it
way the
works
game
both
has changed.
ways.
Exactly, it
exactly.
works both ways as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
In fact, I'm glad you brought that point out, Rikesh. I'll do a brief mention about that when we do 2010 Mohali. There was an interesting incident there towards
Oh,
the end
yes.
as well. Yeah. All right. So coming back, to our discussion, I think one of my favorites, guys, 2003 Adelaide. I think what a
Oh,
phenomenal victory it was. Trust me,
Ooh.
being an Indian cricket fan, seeing us being thrashed and annihilated in Australia in all those previous tours. I mean, I actually began to wonder, will I ever see an Indian team winning a Test match ever in Australia? But that series, right? And that was where the transformation started with Saurav Ganguly, picking up the side, and really, making them not just tigers at home, but even tigers abroad as well. Making them fight hard, and the great Rahul Dravid, the great VVS Lakshman. That partnership was, as significant as Kolkata, if not anything else,
Absolutely,
in
no
terms
doubt.
of, yeah,
I
absolutely
mean, I
right. So, I mean,
remember
just to give, yeah, sorry, just
Saurav
to give
at this.
context here, Devendra. I mean, Australia scored 400 in a day
Yes.
in that Test match, the first innings, and we were like, "Oh my God, what's happening out here? Is this a Test match or a one-day game going on?"
No,
Yeah,
I
go ahead.
remember Saurav at the start of that tour saying in an interview that at the
Yeah.
end of this series, we will know how good we really are.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And then he led from the front in the first test at Brisbane with that fantabulous century. I
144.
think
144.
probably
Yeah.
the best innings, in my humble opinion, played by a captain in a test match overseas, still Mr. Ajinkya Rahane scored that 100 at Melbourne a few months back.
Yeah.
And given the situation, given the significance, given the state, it was important that the captain of India make a statement, and Saurav did just that. And then, of course, Adelaide, we were stuttering a bit, 65 for 4 or something like that. And then there was a repeat
Yeah.
of Kolkata with Rahul and Lakshman. And Rahul
Yes.
just was phenomenal. Again, and the second innings, I remember there were some outstanding catches taken by the Indian.
Rahul
bowling
Dravid
unit.
at first slip off Sachin Tendulkar. I think Damian Martin.
Damien Martin.
Yeah, absolutely. And even
Absolutely
Steve Waugh
brilliant.
was caught at slip.
Saurav's bowling changes were great. He brought on Sachin.
Yeah.
Sachin responded
Yeah.
with 2 wickets. One of them was that superb catch. And then
Yes.
chasing, I think we were still not confident because we were always apprehensive that the Australians would pull a rabbit out of the hat.
That's
But I
right.
think Rahul was in that zone. I think he just kept going. So 233 in the first innings, and he just kept going in the second. And I think we were also helped to a great deal by Stuart McGill, because for every good ball that he bowled, there were at least two, if not
Two loose
three,
balls.
Boundary
bad balls
balls.
that he was doing every over.
Yeah.
And I
So
remember
Doctor,
Lakshman, like Lakshman, it is simple, as John Wright
Yes.
had once said. With Lakshman, the equation is simple. If you bowl him a bad ball, it has to go for 4. No
Exactly.
1, no 2. When you bowl a bad ball to Lakshman, it goes to the boundary. So Lakshman,
right.
I think, just relaxed us completely with that cameo of his.
Absolutely, and I was just about to mention that in that series, remember Shane Warne was still undergoing that ban of 1 year from the World Cup, so he wasn't playing. McGrath was injured as well, so yes, that was another factor. But even then, with Brett Lee, with Jason Gillespie, these guys were lethal. That Australian team of that era, imagine scoring 550 odd in the first innings and losing a test match. It was unheard of. Very few instances of that happening in test cricket as well. And Ricky Ponting scoring a double 100 from Australia. That was a significant knock as well. And Rahul Dravid scoring 233 in the first innings. Lakshman 178. We were 81 for 4, I remember. And Saurav Ganguly was run out, against the run-off play. And then after that, we were like,
He
is
and
this going to
Rahul
finish
Dravid
early?
had some dreadful mix-ups. Saurav and Rahul. And not just
That's
in
right.
international cricket, but I remember even before they started playing, in the mid-90s, ESPN Star used to cover domestic cricket a lot. So there were some dreadful mix-ups from that time itself for India A or in the Challenger tournaments. They have a long history.
Devendra, I want to ask you one question. How many times has there been a result after both the teams have scored in excess of 500 runs? Because in this match, both the teams scored in excess of 500 runs. Still enough time for a result.
Yes.
That means
Correct.
the game was played at a very fast pace, right?
Yeah.
Because 2 double centurions. So that was what Australia always wanted to play. That was their style of play. And India was the only other country, I thought, who matched them in that pace. Because we also had some fantastic stroke makers, like what you said, somebody like Lakshman, Tendulkar, Ganguly. They all scored runs very quickly. Just want to know if there has been any other result, any other victory or defeat after both the teams have scored 500 runs.
I don't recall the specific instances, but it would be very rare if it does, and I think that is something. There's a tinge of irony to all that, because the Australian team of the 90s and the new millennium, they revolutionized the art of batting in Test cricket.
Yeah.
That's right.
By scoring at 4, sometimes even
4
5
and
runs
over.
over. And ironically, that strategy backfired big time in Adelaide, because they gave the opposition a lot of time to get back.
Time to come back. Exactly.
So that is one of the odd things, but that is the beauty of Test cricket. Sometimes your strength can become your weakness.
Absolutely.
And
And I mean,
556, there's no way we could have got back.
Another thing, I don't know whether all our viewers would know about it, is that Dravid scored a double century, but he scored that, I think, on the 4th day, right?
Yes.
So on the 3rd day, he could have scored his double century on the 3rd day, but because he was not taking a lot of singles and he was protecting the tail-enders, he remained not out in the 190s. So I mean, look at the sacrifice. 199,
correct.
Yes. Look at the guy's strategy. Look at the guy's sacrifice. He's not chasing records. He's saying India has to score runs. We need to get into a position of strength. And these are small things, but these are big things as the final outcome of the game. That team,
Of course.
there was, I think, with Ganguly must have been the leader, but there were a lot of leaders within the
Within
team.
the
Like,
team,
like
correct?
Tendulkar was a leader, Dravid was a leader, Lakshman was a leader. Then go to the bowling attack, Zaheer Khan was a leader on his own right, Kumble was a leader. So that is why that team was so good.
Yes,
That's
very
right.
much. And I
And
think again,
not to
we spoke about yesterday. We spoke about Harbhajan being in the middle when we won at Chennai in 2001. So again, you can, with the benefit of hindsight, you can say that
Agarkar.
it was fitting that Agarkar was in the middle when this victory was completed because of what
absolutely.
he had been through in on the previous tour. 5 ducks, which then became
Yes.
7 in 2001, and of
And
course, Ajit Agarkar took 6 wickets. I mean, so he
six
was one of the
wickets, exactly,
Yeah.
architects of the
exactly. I was
ultimate
about to
victory.
say the same. Yes, he took
Yeah,
six
yeah.
wickets on day 4, which enabled us to bowl out Australia and have a go at the target. And again, Mahesh, not to forget Rahul Dravid's contribution in the second innings as well. He scored
72
70 odd,
runs.
Seventy.
not out, not out. Exactly right. So I mean, amazing. That victory was something else. I mean, completely surprised all of us. I mean, seeing 500 being scored in both the first innings. I never thought we'll see a result for sure. And it was a beautiful batting wicket as well. I mean,
Yeah,
there were
yeah.
no
It
demons
was
in the
very good.
wicket. I mean, to bowl out Australia in the second innings, I think Agarkar was getting really good reverse swing. That's something which I remember clearly
He got
back
in
in
a
that game.
flanger very early, and that I think set the tone.
That's right.
And then he just went through the tail, lower order and tail. He just
Yeah.
blew them away.
Because
It
two
was.
crucial wickets Tendulkar took of David Martin and Steve Waugh, that actually
Steve
opened
Waugh.
the game.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I think we should once do something on Sachin the bowler, because that is one
Yeah.
aspect of Sachin that, so the kind of remarkable things he's achieved as a bowler. I think we
Yes,
should. This deserves a separate discussion.
Even
I think
absolutely.
Kolkata also, when Harbhajan took those
Yes,
6, 7
Of
wickets,
course, the
it was
last day,
Tendulkar who picked up those 2 wickets in between when nothing was
see,
happening.
see, and
You
guess
know,
who? Guess who? Gilchrist, Matthew Hayden,
and
and then
Shane
Shane
Warne.
Warne. But Gilchrist and
Correct.
Hayden, the two left-handers who had killed us, massacred us at
complete.
Mumbai. He got both
That's
of
right.
them
Yeah.
in the second innings.
uh,
Man with the golden arm. Yeah,
one thing which I want to kind of highlight now, take a snapshot of that 2003 batting lineup and think about how they batted and compare and contrast with, let's say, how Indian teams bat now. Give you a simple example. You have a ball racing in towards your pad at 145, right? If it is a Sachin or a Rahul Dravid on strike, you know that ball is going to race towards square leg for 4, guaranteed, right? They were actually feeding off those balls day in and day out. The second
that's right.
thing, slightly short, room outside off, there was a square cut, rasping one, right? And that's going to go for 4 again. If you look at the current batting and how batsmen are batting right now, they're actually not getting those square cut boundaries as well as those flicks and the shots that we see on the leg side now. I mean, current batting I think is very dominated in a different way than what used to what these guys used to do. So your
Correct.
thoughts on that at all?
Yeah, I think I agree because like I said, and even there, Yogesh, probably DRS could also be in the picture. Somewhere they are a little varied. Wary of kind of playing across the line of the ball when it's straight
Hmm.
pitching on the pads. I think that's also playing in their mind. The square cuts, maybe if you see the batsmen these days, especially in England, they are little circumspect about taking chances outside the off stump and chasing wide deliveries. I think
Yeah.
that's something it could be credit to the batsman as well sometimes, but of course the batsmanship and what you're talking about in that era was something else, right? Sachin and Rahul and those guys were a couple of notches above everybody else. But I think here I believe they're being a little circumspect. They don't want to lose wickets trying to chase deliveries outside of them. Unless you're a Rishabh Pant, you got the freedom to do that if you are playing in that position. But I think credit to Rahul and even Rohit Sharma for the way they have
Hmm.
opened in this entire innings. I believe they have really really kept it tight, as well as it's been a watertight technique. They have kind of taken their natural game out of the equation completely, and it was
Hmm.
beautiful to watch how they dominated compared to the English openers. In the way they played the line of the ball and did not chase anything outside of them, did not push at the ball. Right? I think that was something amazing to watch.
Classic test
Probably
match
that
batting.
could be one of the reasons.
See,
Yeah.
this is England, but even if you remember, let's say Australia, right? And
Mm.
we're talking about the phenomenal chase, let's say here, right?
Yep.
And first you see Shubman Gill, and then you see Pujara. It took a while for Pujara to actually hit one square cut, which used
That's
to
right.
happen a lot in Australia because you're getting good bounce outside or was it
That's
more because Australians were bowling so tight to the body that Indian batsmen just didn't have the room to cut at all? Or am I seeing this slightly differently? Because I just think that gradually, while you're seeing a lot of straight bats and people, playing on the up, through the rise, through offside, and even pulling really well on the leg, but I generally see a decline in the horizontal bat shot on the offside and that absolute straight bat towards the leg. Those two
mm,
ones.
I
interesting
think
observation.
the Australian bowlers of 2021 were marginally superior to their counterparts of 2003, because if you remember, there was no
Mhm.
Glenn McGrath. I think Brett
Yeah.
Lee, if memory serves me right, played only the last two Test matches. So in
Yeah.
that case,
Hmm.
I one way of looking at it would be that Rahul, Lakshman, Sachin, they were a little more confident against the likes of Brad Williams, and
Yep.
probably up against Glenn McGrath, they would have looked at it a little differently. So again,
Yep.
that is how things, and we just talked about Ajit Wadekar and how double-digit scores are also important.
Correct.
So talking about the Brisbane Test,
Yeah.
Cheteshwar Pujara scored 56 on that last day.
Yeah.
I think as valuable as any triple century. That
Indeed.
means,
Absolutely.
Indeed.
Worth its weight in
Absolutely.
gold.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. I
Because
think also, Yogi, the wickets as well. I mean, to add to Devendra's point as well, right? I think in 2003, like we just spoke about, the Adelaide wicket was a belter, right?
Mm,
There as well, it was batting was relatively easy. Even Melbourne, for that matter, Sehwag scored 195 in a day, right? I mean, even Australia chased down that score and won the game afterwards, right? It's like those days, the batting used to be relatively easier. I'm talking about the 90s and 2000 eras, not before that. The wickets were much more flatter. I think that's what probably contributed, except for maybe Perth,
Probably,
which
yeah.
had a lot of bounce. I think we saw a lot of runs being scored in Australia in those days. Even in England, for that matter, right? The Headingley Test match that we spoke about earlier, in one of the previous shows,
yeah.
2002 as well, right? And in those days, except for the first day, rest of the days batting was relatively easier.
Yeah.
All right, guys, coming back to where we were, I think another significant win we're going to talk about here, 2008 Chennai. And this was coming up, in the aftermath of the
Ooh.
attacks in Mumbai. If you guys remember, this was played behind closed doors, that we are used to seeing now. But in those days, it was a very rare sight to see a test match being played without crowds. And it was like a fortress, right? It was guarded by all policemen and, all kinds of professionals, and it was really sad to see what was happening, but again the cricket in the middle was really the winner there.
Yeah,
So
but
Mahesh, Devendra.
spectators were there. There were spectators allowed. It is just that the
Yep.
matches were shifted from Ahmedabad and Mumbai, the two Test matches.
Oh yeah,
They were
sorry,
shifted
they,
to
they were
Chennai
there.
and
Correct,
Mumbai.
correct, correct. Yeah. it was
And
it was played in a
I
very
was
secure environment. Yeah, correct,
yeah,
I
so I
remember. Yeah.
was part of the board that time. So yeah, it was
Hmm.
we had made these big plans. There was the Test match at Mumbai, which was
Yeah,
like the second Test was at Mumbai, and it was shifted to Mohali. The
that's
Ahmedabad
right.
Test was shifted to Chennai, and we had like made plans to celebrate the platinum jubilee of the first Test on Indian soil. The first Test on Indian soil was played between from 15th December to 18th December 1933 at Bombay Gym, and this Test match at Mumbai was to be played from 19th December to 23rd December at CCI. Why CCI? Because Wankhede was undergoing renovation for the 2011 World Cup. So it was
World
2011
Cup.
World Cup, yeah.
so we had planned on the eve of the Mumbai Test, we were to have this big celebration on the lawns of the Bombay Gym. In fact, both the teams were to attend, former captains, all that. But obviously, after the tragedy of 26/11, those celebrations were called off and the matches were shifted. Now, when it comes to the Chennai Test, I would just like to tell you a little story. Uh, you know, we talk about that great Indian side of the 2000s. We started winning regularly overseas in the first decade of the new millennium, and the culmination of obviously was in 2009 when we became the number one team in the Test rankings for the very first time. We got the ICC Test Championship mace. And
That's right.
then, of course, the Chennai game, England dominated. Andrew Strauss scored a century in each innings,
Correct.
and England declared. Kevin Peterson was leading England then. He declared 386 ahead, set us a target of 387. And I remember Ian Botham, who was one of the commentators, saying that he should have declared maybe 30, 40 runs earlier, 330, 340, more than enough. A little bit of the fourth day and the whole of the fifth day, enough to bowl out India. And now here's the thing, we talk about Saurav, Sachin, Rahul, all these great players, but who was the biggest game changer for India with the bat in the first decade of the new millennium? It
The
was
Has to be
butcher from
Sehwag.
Najafgarh.
Has to be
Virender
Butcher
Sehwag.
from
Sehwag.
Najafgarh.
Now the thing is, December 2001, England were touring India under the captaincy of Nasir Hussain. There was a
Yes.
three-test series. We won the first test at Mohali. The second test was at Ahmedabad. It was both teams did well with the bat in the first innings. Sachin scored a century. I think Craig White scored a century for England, and we were set a target of 370 or 374 or 375 to win, with a little bit of the fourth day and the whole of the fifth day left. We did not make the slightest attempt to go
Attempt.
for the title. By the
Yes.
time the match ended in a boring draw, I think we were about,
That's right.
if memory serves me, that we were 160 or 170. A total, I mean, it was a total anticlimax.
Yes.
Exactly 7 years later, same situation. England setting us a target of 387, very similar to the Ahmedabad target, but there was a difference. Someone who had batted at number 6 or number 7 at Ahmedabad in 2001 was
Correct.
opening for India in 2008. And what he did that afternoon, I mean, if you are to ask me, I have been lucky to have watched all his innings live on television, of course, and a little bit of his 293 at the CCI against Sri Lanka in the flesh. But if I have to pick one favorite Sehwag innings, it will have to be that innings he scored at Chennai on the fourth afternoon. Oh, he just turned the match, on its head. Brilliant
That's
batting.
right. That's right. He enabled the chase on the fifth day by that start that he gave India. Absolutely. I
Absolutely, a
agree.
great innings.
Yes. Yes. And
And then, of course, Sachin
again,
coming on the
Sachin's
last day,
Sachin's 100.
Yuvraj. I mean,
Yes.
it was sensational.
He was
Yeah,
Correct.
he was
he
like
just he
Ramayana.
And
You
if you
know,
remember, Devendra, you brought out that 2001 series, the third test in Bangalore, which was disturbed by rain and stuff.
Rain.
So, but there was a very very interesting passage of play. Nasir Hussain's captaincy skills, was brought to the fore.
Yes,
I mean,
yes,
he was the only guy to get under the skin of Sachin with some
yes.
negative tactics.
negative
Ashley Giles bowling over the wicket.
over the
If
wicket
memory
onto the
serves me
side.
right, Sachin got out first time stumped
first
in a
time
test
stump.
Yes.
match. Right, exactly. And also I remember him mentioning it was Sehwag who kind of picked him and said, "Kya kar rahe ho Sachin Paji, maro yaar, spinner bowling
Yeah,
kar
yeah.
raha hai."
Because Sehwag was hitting Ashley Giles. Sehwag was like, in his own zone. So
That's right. He was
Sehwag
sweeping,
was,
reverse sweeping and stuff. And then Sachin also got little, pumped up and then, against the run of play. I remember
Sehwag,
him
while we all
mentioning
talk
this.
about Sehwag's great ability to play fast bowling, even a fantastic batsman against spin bowling. You ask
Yeah.
Muralidharan has gone on record to say, I just couldn't bowl to him. He was able to bowl to Tendulkar. He was able to stop Tendulkar from hitting a lot of boundaries. But with Sehwag, he just couldn't bowl to him. The guy had some ability to read the ball properly and smash it to the boundary. Different kind of a player.
So
Absolutely.
remember, Mahesh, I told you in the previous conversation, Sehwag told Ashwin once, right, in the nets, यार मैं ऑफ स्पिनर को बॉलर नहीं मानता हूँ. So that's how it is.
yeah,
That's how it is. That's how it
Guru
is.
speaks his
Hey,
mind.
the real question is सहवाग किसको bowler मानता है?
Bowler मानता है.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Coming to the twin victories in 2010. I mean, once again, the magic of that man, VVS Lakshman, Devendra Mahesh, Yogi. Go ahead. Take me through
Let us
this match.
Mohali, yeah, 216 to win and 124 for 8, and then that stand between him and Ishant. I think Ishant played one of the greatest innings in the history of Indian cricket. And I
31,
remember,
right? You scored?
huh?
31 you scored, right?
31.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Is,
And
is
I
that is
remember
that
we
is
were
that
at,
the is that the match
yeah,
when VVS Lakshman was running back saying, what a match, Gary, what a match.
yeah. In fact, he
Yeah.
even abused Pragyan Ojha for
Pragyan
not,
Oja.
and then apologized to him. Classic VVS. You know,
He
so I
literally
remember
flung a bat at him.
we
I
were in
remember.
Bangalore on the last day. There was the World Cup was coming up in India, and we had this World Cup organizing committee meeting, which we managed to delay by half an hour. And we said, because it's getting too hot, the stress is too much, so let this end. And we were like watching the game, and Ishant kept his nerve, and VVS Lakshman, of course, he had a bad back, and Suresh Raina had come in as runner. So Suresh
That's
Raina
right.
also did a fine job, and then those heart-stopping moments, and then of course that that moment that you referred to, Venu, a little while back. Which,
In fact, there were two moments there, Devendra, for
yeah,
DRS to come into picture. One is when Ishant got out. It was clearly going down the leg side. If they had reviewed it, they would have won the review. Secondly, Pragyan Ojha plumb in
Plum,
front.
he was
plum.
plumb in.
So yeah, basically justice was served. It was all evened out in the end. But then yeah,
Yes, yes,
of
yes.
course,
That was a
those
great
are the
chase.
days.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
But imagine if the match was played today, India could never have won because Lakshman could never have had a runner. Lakshman had a runner in both the innings, by the way.
Yes,
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 And
yes.
yes,
Dhoni got run out because of the runner. Because
But
he looked
yes,
at Lakshman and he thought that Lakshman is not running. And by the time
yes,
he realized there was a runner, he got run out. So
yes.
probably
Yeah.
if it was today's time, we might not have won that game. But what an
Mahesh,
innings by Lakshman
Mahesh,
against.
if it was today's times, Lakshman may not have got injured.
That's another way of.
Yeah, otherwise he would not have made a comeback into the team at all.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I remember very clearly it was after this game, there was a lot of hue and cry about Lakshman's selection in the next game. I think Ponting had made it very loud and clear that, if he's unfit, I would rather not allow him a runner in the next game, because if he's
Yeah, but
not
he
fit,
dropped out,
he
I
should not.
think.
He
Lakshman
dropped
did
out.
not play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. But there was a lot of hue and cry made. I remember that, they clearly mentioned that if he's unfit, he'd rather
He
not
can't get an
himself.
injury into the game. I mean, that is what the
Exactly,
law
exactly.
says.
That was a law, absolutely. And then the 2010 victory in Bangalore as well, guys. Cheteshwar Pujara,
That was,
the
of
He came
course,
of
aggressive
age.
Cheteshwar Pujara, promoted to number three.
one of those surprising moves by Dhoni to send him in at number 3. But I think it
That's
was
right.
very well thought of because, Pujara went in, Sachin was there. Sachin was high on confidence after having scored a double century in the
Double
first
hundred.
innings.
That's right.
Yeah, and then Rahul came in at, I think, number 5 or 6 to finish, to
Yeah.
perform the last rights,
Yeah.
basically. So,
Even
yeah,
Murli Vijay
good
scored a
one.
100 with Sachin in
Yeah,
that
he
game,
scored a
if I remember.
century.
Yes,
Yeah,
Murli Vijay scored a
yeah,
yes,
century.
that's right.
He had
That's
a
right.
big partnership with Sachin.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Murli Vijay and
and I think
Tendulkar had a long partnership
Yeah,
in
And
the
I think
first
from
innings.
2007, starting with that win in England, the series win in England, till 2010-11, I think India was on a roll in Test cricket. We
in Test
we
cricket,
just we did
yes.
a. I think we won in England, of course, then New Zealand, we won a
We
series,
went
and
to
we
Australia, we
went
defeated
all
them at
over the
Perth.
world. Perth,
That's
of
right.
course, that
Perth,
we
yeah.
Perth
squared
victory
the
was a very
series,
famous
and
victory.
then South Africa, that victory at Durban.
Durban,
Now,
Durban.
yes.
had someone told me after the famous 100 all out and 66 all out in 1996 that a day will come when India will win a Test match at Durban, just 14 years down the line, I would have never
Oh, God.
believed it. But
I mean,
one at Durban, I mean, that was such a big thing, winning at
also,
Durban.
also the man who opened in that 166. If somebody was to tell me that he will go on to become the successful batting coach of the
Oh
current
God,
Indian
oh
team,
God, oh
I
God.
wouldn't have believed it.
I agree completely, man. I mean, yeah, how times change, right? It's phenomenal. Yeah, I mean, but that series, if I remember, Devendra, Australia did not win anything in that year, right? In India, I believe it was a complete whitewash
It was a
in
two
that
Test
in that
series,
two
so
test
it
series.
we
Yes,
lost 2-0. So
but I
yeah,
think even they lost the ODI series as well, if I remember correctly,
yes,
or was
yes.
it just the
Yeah.
tests? They didn't
I
win a
think
single
I
game.
think they played only the tests, if memory serves me right. I'm not
Yeah.
Okay,
sure because that
okay,
was a time when they were coming to India practically every year. So they came in
every year,
2008,
exactly.
4 tests,
Yeah,
then 2009 only for 7 ODIs. Prior to that, 2007 they had come for 7 ODIs. So it was almost
that's
an
right.
annual thing. They had
Annual
But
thing.
almost
that
gone
was
the
a
Sri
series.
Lanka way.
Yeah, but that was a series that Pujara came in
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
that Test match. Then
In
onwards,
fact,
I
it
think
was
Pujara is
unfortunate.
more or
I
less
felt that
established it.
he got injured, and I think he missed the 2011 season. Maybe
Yes.
had he been around in England and Australia in 11-12, who knows?
Yeah,
Yes.
a
It could
4-0
well
might
have been
not
a
have
different
happened.
story. Yeah, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was the biggest anticlimax after the high of 2011, the World Cup. Oh my God,
Yes,
that
yes.
I would never forget that year. It's like a terrible year for Test cricket for Indian fans. Oh my God, that was something
The,
else.
the year
Absolutely.
of Monty Panesar hitting Sachin's pads.
No, that was 2012.
Yeah,
What
yeah,
you're
yeah.
talking about. So
That's when
that
they
was in
came to
India.
India.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was again in 2012 in India, which we
yeah, yeah, yeah.
lost after a long time, right? The series lost in
84,
India.
85.
Yes, exactly.
Another left-handed captain. That time it was David
Yes.
Gower. This time it was Alistair Cook.
Yes.
In 84, 85, we had won the first test of the series. In 2012, I
Correct.
think we won the first test, and then
Yes.
the Monty Panesar, Graham Swan bowled brilliantly, and I
Outbowled
think,
us.
and
Yes.
obviously we missed Rahul and Lakshman. Both had quit a few months back,
That's
and
right.
Kevin Peterson's innings at the Wankhede Stadium, it was a classic. Uh,
Brilliance.
Privileged to watch it.
Yes.
You are doing well against Indian spinners at the Wankhede, and I remember the ovation he received from the Wankhede crowd also when he was on his way back. So
Especially on that pitch, Devendra. That pitch was
Yes.
yeah,
treacherous.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
it's a shame. It's sad that England, he fell out. Maybe they should have
Yeah.
found a way. Some people need to be treated differently. I don't know. It all
That's
boils
right.
down to man management. But Kevin
That's right.
Peterson was, he was a Dada
Yeah.
cricketer, Dada batsman,
Exactly.
absolute
He was a
great
prodigy.
all-time. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
The
Yes.
boss man.
The
Quickly
first,
before we come to, sorry, go ahead, Mesh. Go make your point.
the only match where I see that English bowlers knew at what pace to bowl. And the Indian bowlers
Mm.
did not. I mean, we had Ashwin, I
Yes.
think we had
Yes.
Pragya Noja, we had three Harbhajan Singh, but Monty and Swan knew exactly at what pace to bowl, and that's why they got all the wickets. We struggled. I think Cook scored a century, Peterson scored a century. I mean, they just took the game away from us because we were just not able to get them out. We just did not know what pace to bowl on that wicket.
That's right. Absolutely. I think, yeah. So I was just about to mention before coming to Gabba, there was one more 2011 game between India and West Indies. If we can quickly summarize that, Mahesh and Devendra.
Yeah, so that
Devendra, you
was that
can.
was Ravichandran Ashwin's game. I
Ashwin.
think he took 12 wickets, and it was a
Hmm.
the West Indies team that came to India in 2011 gave a pretty good account of itself. I think
That's right.
we did win the first two test matches, and the third test at Mumbai was an odd game because it finished with the scores level, but it wasn't a tie because
Yeah.
we had not been bowled out. I think there was a run
That's
out
right.
of the last ball, but a great game of cricket. And I
Yeah.
remember that Mumbai test because Sachin was there was a lot of speculation that he's going to score his 100st class century, and all the news channels, everybody had prepared everything, that the journalists had kept their copies ready, and then of course he fell on 94. But the Delhi test, prior to
Yeah.
that, we had to chase, I think, 276 in the fourth innings.
That's right.
Sachin did well, and Lakshman again, I think he scored an unbeaten half century. So
Yes.
Lakshman again, another second innings specialist,
Key.
always
Second
up
innings.
for whenever his team needed runs, Lakshman would deliver.
That's right.
That was classic
That's correct.
VVS Lakshman again.
Yeah, I
That
remember
entire
that phase
series,
of.
if you see,
Mhm.
that entire series, everybody was anticipating Tendulkar's 100th century.
This-
I mean, whether it
Not
was
that entire
the
series, but the entire year.
The entire year, in fact.
Till he did it in 2012, I believe. I mean, that was like Devendra said, a nightmare for journalists who had everything prepared in drafts and then.
Everything was ready. I remember the BCCI had prepared one film on him, which I had scripted. So everything was ready. कि अभी एक complete century करेगा, and then we post it on the web. Everything had to wait till 2012.
I was
Absolutely.
there
And
on the
that is,
ground. I thought that I will be able to see him score his 100th century, but he got out at 94 and I walked off the ground. I said, "Abhi kya dekhoge?"
you know, and that is when you realize यार ये सचिन ने वो जो 90 बीच में ठोके थे उसको अगर 100 बना देता तो ये वेट ही नहीं करना पड़ता इतने दिन.
Exactly. Exactly. All right, guys. Last but
It
not the
all
least, by
boils
any
down
stretch
to
of
2021
information,
Gabba.
Gabba 2021. Oh my goodness. We guys have witnessed something spectacular this year. Not just this test match, but the entire series, and I think we have already discussed that in January this year, that one of the greatest test series of all time that we have seen. In my humble opinion, greater than 2001, Kolkata as well, in terms of not just the test match, the series I'm talking about. And in terms of the overall context, greater than probably, it's controversially, people, still abuse me saying that no, Ashes 2005 was the greatest series of all time. I
No,
said,
no, no,
no,
no, no,
sorry.
no.
If you see the context of this series, not talking about just being an Indian fan, but if you see the way this was played out, the way they came back, and in the history of Test cricket, I would never imagine this would happen ever again.
Yeah.
Literally 70 to 80% of the team wiped out due to injuries in this pandemic time. With all these replacements coming in, it's like I don't know how to describe it. It was like a thing of it was like a conveyor belt in which you keep getting players every time, and
I
it's
think
like Yeah.
I think 2021 was the mark the culmination. I mean, this aspect has not really been spoken about, and but given that I was a
Yes.
part of the board between 2008 and 2015, I think it is important to talk about this aspect. A lot of work was done on the infrastructure front during those years,
Correct.
Yes.
in
Absolutely.
2006-7 onwards. All the state associations were encouraged to create stadia, create their academies, employ professional physios, trainers, and most importantly, in 2010 or so, the board took a decision to make India A, the India
Correct.
A
Yes.
team, play as many matches as possible, as many series as possible, and the
Correct.
results were there. So Virat Kohli, for example, after his success as the under 19 captain in the World Cup in 2008, he went to Australia as part of the India A team in the emerging nations tournament, and he scored a century, and there it was. That
That's right.
was where he made a mark at the senior level. So
That's right.
it was all an outcome and culmination of all the work done at the grassroots level, and the fact that in 2021 there were so many injuries, and we still had players good enough to adapt
Bench
and
strength.
cope, with the vagaries and the pressures of international cricket. And another very critical role in this regard was played by the IPL. The IPL, of course, has nothing
Yeah.
in common with the traditional version, but
Yes.
the very
Yes.
fact that you have all these guys at the start of their careers playing, handling pressure, and playing
Fearless.
in front of packed
Yes.
houses, they are not
Yes.
overawed. The new generation of Indian
Exactly.
cricketers is not overawed. And I think that
Exactly.
showed, the way Mohammad Siraj bowled, Shardul
Yes.
Thakur, Shubman Gill, it was just
I mean,
incredible.
it's a captain's nightmare, Devendra, to not have resources on hand, in terms of what they would have planned before the series and what they got in
Exactly.
the end, right? So hats off to the management, the coach, and the captain as well to make
And
the
the board
best of
as well,
whatever they
for all
got,
that had
and the
happened
board.
in the previous
Exactly.
years. Like Shubman Gill
Exactly.
in 2014 won the BCCI's Best Under 16 Cricketer of the Year award. So he is
Wow.
someone who had climbed up the ladder. It's not that suddenly, he
Exactly.
burst onto the scene. And then, of course, he was a member of the World Cup winning team in 2018, where
That's right.
Prithvi Shaw was the captain. So
That's
whether it
right.
was Shubman Gill or Shardul Thakur or Mohammad Siraj, they've all come up that ladder. They've all climbed the ladder.
Correct.
They were like
Yes.
raring to go by the time they got a chance to play Test cricket. Washington
Exactly.
Sundar, I mean, who would have imagined? But what a difference he made. I mean, brilliant, absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yes.
after
And I think that's
36 all out, remember,
exactly, exactly, and
And
that's
losing
what
the
we were
captain.
talking about, right?
and
Losing the
losing the captain.
captain, their
That's the main
best
part.
player in terms of
Best
the
batsman in
records
the
that
side.
suggests. Yeah, exactly, right. And Yogi, we also spoke about this earlier as well, right? These youngsters are dying to get an opportunity, right? And that's what probably prevailed in the end in terms of the confidence and the enthusiasm that they showed. It's like they
Yes.
just wanted that one opportunity. It's so hard to now get into this Indian team, right?
It is, and that's why, even when India is doing well right now, I still miss watching Sundar in action and wish, okay, how does he get a
How
chance to
does it
play
fit
Test
in?
cricket for India again, or soon? Ask Akshar Patel the same question,
Ask Ravichandran Ashwin, man.
Exactly.
You don't get to see anywhere else. It's like imagine a guy, closing in on 400 Test wickets, and it's I don't know
But
what to say.
there's another thing I'd say. I think because of what may have happened in Australia,
Yeah.
it is not unthinkable to think that India actually played three different teams recently.
Hmm. That's
You
right.
imagine the tour to Sri Lanka that happened, right?
Yes.
I feel some of that actually, the board would have got that confidence because of what they see this team achieving in Australia. That, we can squeeze in more cricket, we can make more room, and,
Yeah.
we've got enough
Of course,
talent and bench strength to actually make this happen.
Yes. Exactly. I agree.
Because back in the day, do you think even if
correct, definitely,
there
without
this was an option, would India have gone for something like this? And I think
Correct.
this is what's credit to all of that infrastructure and all of the skill building that has happened. This is what I think, that tour to Sri Lanka, I feel somehow was a result of what we did in Australia.
definitely,
Absolutely.
without a doubt.
Yes. Yes. Exactly. And I mean, I'm again at the cost of being repetitive, Mahesh. We have spoken about this before as well, right? We would love to see that kind of a contest where India A, and another team coming and playing a tri series together, like the way Australia used to do it in the 90s, right? That's something which I would love to see on the international level.
It might. It's a
Yeah, but
possibility. It's definitely a
Yes.
Yeah.
possibility, but I don't think it will be recorded as a proper match. I don't know how they will
Australia did it
want to
once
take.
in 98. They had
Yeah,
94, 95. They had Australia, Australia A. And the
That's
members
right.
of the Australian team said that, this should not happen again because we are not able to like pump ourselves up, playing against our own
correct.
compatriots. So that
Interesting.
that
So
experiment wasn't repeated after a
Yeah.
season. But Australia and Australia A qualified for the finals at the expense of England and Sri Lanka. That just shows how strong they were.
Yeah. I mean,
that same strength right now India has also got, right?
Of course,
Like
exactly.
what Australia had, the
Exactly.
bench strength that they say, it's prevailing in India right now. Like what Yogi said, we can send multiple teams. We can send one
Correct.
to England, one to Sri Lanka, and probably one to Bangladesh also to play.
and you
That
know
is
what?
what IPL has done. That is what IPL has done. And there's a lot of money even in domestic cricket. I mean, look at a Ranji Trophy player. He makes a
Yes.
reasonable amount of money. Gone are the
That's right.
days when these guys couldn't make that kind of money. Now everything is. I mean, infrastructure again. The reason why India is so successful is because of the money that has been put in by the board to make the infrastructure better. And it has gone a
That's right.
long way. I mean, like what Devendra said, from maybe 2008 onwards. So no, we have not got a Virat Kohli or a Shubman Gill or a Rishabh Pant overnight. It has been a process that got them there.
Of course, of
That's right.
course. I mean, and I have
We,
been a witness to all that. I've been lucky to have witnessed all that firsthand. So it's
And
very easy to malign the BCCI, oh, money making machine. But look what they have done in terms of
Correct?
performance,
that's
output,
right.
and consistency. I mean, that is there for everybody to see, and the
and
world is like envying us now.
and the other
Yeah,
thing is, there's
absolutely.
also a bit of a flexibility in the system. So as much as Devendra, you spoke about Shubman Gill rising up the ladder, the system has also allowed somebody like a T Natarajan or a Siraj to short
Yes.
circuit and break through the
Exactly.
system.
Of
Exactly.
course, of course.
Exactly. And that's what the IPL has done, right? That's what Devendra was also
Mm.
talking about. That's the short route to kind of fame, and the longer route is also there. So you have both options now because,
And I think that
it's like,
mental aspect makes a lot of difference. I
yeah,
mean, they are not
Yeah,
overawed, they are not
absolutely.
intimidated. They are,
exactly.
They're
and they are well
confident
looked
lads.
after.
They're extremely.
You know, I
Whether it is
also
their
feel that
fitness, everything is well monitored, well looked after, systems are in place, and
That's
you
that
right.
is
know
the reason why Indian cricket is in the pink of health. Hopefully it will remain that way. Sometimes I get a little apprehensive that will the next generation feel as strongly about international cricket as the current lot of Virat, Ajinkya, Rohit does. Virat, of course,
Mm.
as
Yeah.
Ian Chappell recently said, Virat is the premier ambassador of Test
Test
cricket.
cricket is
But once
correct.
this lot moves on a few years later, will the generation that follows them, the generation that has grown up in the IPL era, will they
Yes.
feel as strongly about international cricket? I would like to
That's
believe
going to be a
they will,
challenge.
after seeing what happened in Australia.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead, Yogi. You were saying
did
something.
did did Kane Williamson not hear him and say, "Hold my cup" or something?
Well, that's
Oh
I,
God.
I was just saying, hearing this Australia A kind of conversation, I feel if it is limited overs cricket now, if India and India A compete, India A might just win, you
yes.
know,
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I mean,
because
yeah, they were.
it's
They
that
were.
kind of
They were.
hunger, isn't it?
Exactly. I mean, there were rumors and talks as well that the team that played in Sri Lanka probably would be better served to be going to the
Yeah,
T20 World Cup than
T20
the team
World
yeah,
in
Cup.
England.
yeah. There's
That's
plenty written about 130 strike rate. Let me just say that.
All right, guys. I think we stretched a lot today, but that's what Test cricket is all about. Going out of your comfort zone and then hanging in there. So yeah, I
Yes.
mean, there's no regrets. Absolutely, this was a fabulous discussion, and thank you, Devendra, Mahesh, Yogi, for also joining in. I think, yeah, taking our taking us back down memory lane with all those fabulous victories and so many insights that generally the viewers and, like Devendra mentioned, the current generation or the future generation may not know about. That's what Cherry and
Correct.
Timber Talk does, and that's what we love to discuss and love to bring to the table. So thank you everybody for watching, commenting as well, and thank you to all our guests out here, and we look forward to an exciting test series. Really can't wait for 25th of August to see what England comes back with, at Headingley. So yeah, I'm really, really excited, as is our panel, and we will be back with another show pretty soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you very
Take
much.
care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.